Welcome to Gaming Central from ImaginativeVisions.com. Justin here, and today we're going to be counting down 10 underrated RPGs I feel you should play. For every Final Fantasy, Persona, Tales of, Trails, there are RPGs that never got the spotlight they deserve. And today we're counting down some of these games, from forgotten handheld gems to cult classics that still deserve a second chance. We're going to kick it off with number 10, Cosmic Star Heroine. Cosmic Star Heroine is one of those games that immediately feels familiar if you grew up loving classic 16-bit RPGs. It has that fast-moving sci-fi adventure energy, but it never feels like it's only trying to copy the past. Instead, it takes inspiration from old school RPGs and gives it a more sharper, more modern pace and feel. The story follows Alyssa, a skilled government agent who gets pulled into a conspiracy after uncovering secrets that powerful people do not want exposed. From there, the game opens up into a space adventure filled with different planets, strange threats, and a party of characters who each bring their own style to the journey. Gameplay wise, this is a classic turn based RPG combat with a little bit of a twist. You're not just choosing the same attacks over and over. The battle system's design pushes you to think about the skill usage, your timing, and your party setup. Fights move quickly, which helps the game avoid one of the most biggest problems some classic style RPGs have, which was slow pacing. This game is on the list because it gives you that classic RPG flavor without wasting your time. It's stylish, colorful, energetic. It's the kind of game that feels like it was made by people who understood why old school RPGs work so well, but also understood that modern players want something that keeps moving. I also forgot to mention that Cosmic Star Heroine has an amazing soundtrack that I highly suggest everybody check out. With that being said, it's time to move on to number 9. Number 9, Nostalgia for the Nintendo DS. Nostalgia is a perfect name for this game because it feels like a throwback to classic adventure stories. This Nintendo DS RPG takes place in an alternative version of the 19th century, where airships, ancient ruins, mystery, and exploration drive the story forward. The story follows Eddie, a young boy who sets out to find his missing father. The setup sounds simple, right? But it actually works because the game leans into the spirit of adventure. You're not just saving the world right away, you're traveling, you're discovering new places, you're meeting allies, and you're slowly getting pulled into something way more bigger. The gameplay is the traditional turn based RPG design. You explore towns, you go through dungeons, you fight monsters, and of course, you upgrade your party and you move across the world in an airship. And when it comes to RPGs, who doesn't love the traditional airship? It does not try to reinvent the RPG genre, but that is part of the charm. Sometimes you just want a classic RPG that knows exactly what it is. And I feel like Nostalgia deserves a little bit more love because it captures that feeling of discovery. It has compelling characters. And the DS had a strong, and I mean really strong, RPG library. And because of that, some games got lost in the shuffle, and I felt like Nostalgia was one of them. It may not be the most famous handheld RPG, may not be the most highest reviewed RPG as well, but it has a lot of charm and adventure that I felt it was worth adding to this list. The number 8th entry is probably the most unique entry on this list. Number 8, Time Stalkers for the Sega Dreamcast. Time Stalkers is the most unique, weirdest game on this list. But you know what, folks? That's part of why I felt like it deserves a spot. The Dreamcast had a full, unique library of experimental games, and Time Stalkers fits right into that era. It's not the cleanest RPG, it's not the most polished RPG, it's not even highly reviewed RPG, but it had ideas that I felt made it memorable, such as the dungeon layout changing every time you enter it. The story begins with Sword, a hero who gets pulled into a strange world made up of different realities. From there, the game becomes a strange mix of fantasy, mystery, and crossover style storytelling. It has that early 3D RPG feeling where developers were still experimenting with how the genre should work or look on newer hardware, especially the Dreamcast. The gameplay blends RPG mechanics with roguelike dungeon exploration and monster collecting. Yes, monster collecting. You enter dungeons, you complete objectives, you build your character, and you deal with the systems that are not always typical for the RPG genre. It can be odd, but that oddness is also what gave the game its identity. Time Stalkers is on this list because underrated does not always mean flawless, folks. Sometimes it just means that the game was interesting enough for you to check out. Kind of like a so bad it's good type of thing. But this game took a lot of risk. And even with those risks not being fully realized, they made it stand out. And for Dreamcast fans and RPG players who enjoy strange hidden gems, Time Stalkers is worth checking out. Number 7 is one of my favorite PSP RPGs. Number 7, Brave Story New Traveler for the PSP. Brave Story New Traveler is one of those PSP RPGs that more people should talk about. It's not trying to be dark, edgy, or overly complicated. Instead, it gives players a heartfelt fantasy adventure with classic RPG structure and a hell of a lot of charm. The story follows a young boy who enters a fantasy world called Vision in hopes of saving someone close to him. It's a simple emotional setup, but it gives the journey a clear purpose. You understand why the main character is moving forward, and that emotional motivation helps carry the adventure. Gameplay wise, this is a traditional turn based RPG. You form a party, you explore towns, you enter dungeons, you fight enemies, you gain abilities, and you upgrade your equipment. It's easy to understand, but still satisfying if you enjoy classic RPG progression. Brave Story New Traveler is underrated because it came out on the PSP, a system that had plenty of RPGs fighting for attention, but this one may not have become a massive name, but it delivers a polished and enjoyable experience. And sometimes a game doesn't need to change the genre, sometimes it just needs to be a good adventure, and that's exactly what Brave Story New Traveler was. Number 6 is a game that has been overshadowed by the bigger franchises within its company. Number 6, Tokyo Exandu X Plus for the PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, and PC, and the original version was on the PlayStation Vita. Tokyo Exandu X Plus is a great example of a game that gets overshadowed because the developers had bigger franchises in the chamber. When we talk about Falcom, they're usually bringing up the Yeast series or the Legend of Heroes series. But Tokyo Exandu X Plus deserves recognition and your attention too. The story follows Ku, a high school student who becomes involved in a supernatural mystery connected to a dangerous otherworldly realm called the Eclipse. What starts off as a normal school life quickly turns into a battle against monsters and hidden forces threatening the world around him. The gameplay mixes action RPG combat with school life exploration. You spend time in the city, you talk to characters, you take on side quests, you build relationships, and then you enter dungeons where the combat becomes fast and skill based. Each character has different abilities, so switching between them keeps the action from feeling stale. Tokyo Exandel X Plus is on this list because it's a strong comfort RPG. It has the anime style urban fantasy feel. It's fun action combat and has enough character moments to keep you invested. And the characters, you have enough to juggle. You have enough characterization. The pacing is good and it doesn't overstay its welcome. It may not reach the same level as other bigger titles, but it has a vibe that I think a lot of JRPG fans are looking for. If you get a chance to check this one out, make sure you do. Number 5 is what you will call a cult classic or a cult following, and I feel like it needs a lot more recognition. Number 5, Sakura Wars for the PlayStation 4. Sakura Wars is one of the most diverse and versatile games on this list because it mixes so many different styles together. It's part RPG, it's part action game, it's part visual novel, it's part dating sim, it's part anime drama. Yes, it's part anime drama. And it's part theater production, believe it or not. That combination right there might make you feel like this game might be bloated or how they're able to balance everything out. Trust me, they do, and that's why it's on this list, and that's exactly what makes this game stand out. The story takes place in a steampunk version of Tokyo, where the theater company also serves as a defense force against supernatural threats. During the day, the characters perform on stage and they build relationships. And when danger appears, they suit up and battle enemies in a mech style combat. And the gameplay is split between character interaction and action battles. A huge part of the experience comes from talking to your team, making dialogue choices, and learning more about the cast. Building relationships is just as important as the actual battles. Hell, even probably even more. This is more story driven, but there's a lot of action in this too. The combat is more action focused than older entries in this series, giving the game a faster, more epic feel during its battles. And the reason why I put Sakura Wars on this list is because there are not many RPGs with this type of personality, this type of presentation. It's melodramatic, it's funny, it's romantic, it's stylish, and it's full blown anime. Clearly, this is anime written all over it, even down to the presentation. One of my favorite things about the presentation is that it's presented to you, each chapter is presented to you like an episode. So you playing a game, but you also feel like you're experiencing an anime that you can control. And I love this about the game. It may not be for everyone, but if you want an RPG that feels different from the usual fantasy quests, this one, hands down, is worth playing. Turn on your PlayStation 5, turn on your PlayStation 4, and download Sakura Wars. 100% must have in your collection. Number four is a crossover game that I was anticipating and was so happy when I finally got to play it. Number four, Project X Zone for the Nintendo 3DS. Project X Zone is pure crossover madness in the best way possible. This is a Nintendo 3DS tactical RPG that brings together characters from Bandai Namco, Capcom, and Sega franchises, creating a lineup that feels like a celebration of gaming history. The story is built around different worlds colliding, which gives the game an excuse to bring all these characters together. It's not a subtle plot, and it doesn't need to be. The fun comes from seeing heroes and villains from different franchises interact, team up, and battle across a wild crossover adventure. The gameplay mixes tactical movement with active combat timing. You move units around the map like a strategy RPG, but when battle starts, you trigger combos supporting attacks and flashy team moves. It gives the combat a more energetic feel than a typical grid based RPG. Project X Zone deserves a spot because it's the kind of game that should not work as well as it does. It could have been nothing more than fan service, but the battle system gives it a real entertainment value. If you love crossovers, classic game characters, and over the top attacks, this is one of the Nintendo 3DS games you should not overlook. Trust me, it's one of the best RPGs on the Nintendo 3DS, and I felt that this was severely slept on when it came out. Definitely check out Project X Zone. Number three is a game I've been trying to get my friends to play ever since I finished it. Number three, Triangle Strategy for the Nintendo Switch, PC, MetaQuest, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S. Triangle Strategy may not be completely unknown, but I feel that it's still underrated when we're talking about modern day tactical RPGs. This is a game that deserves to be mentioned more often than it is because it brings back the feeling of those classic strategy RPGs while adding to its own identity. The story takes place in a land where three nations are tied together by politics, resources, and the damage left behind from past wars. You follow Saranoa and his allies as they are forced into difficult choices that can change the direction of the story. This is not a simple good versus evil RPG. It's about loyalty, power, leadership, and the cost of making decisions when every option has consequences. The gameplay is tactical and grid based. Positioning matters, elevation matters, turn order matters. Every character has a specific role, so battles feel like puzzles when you need to use your team properly. The game also has a voting system where major story decisions are debated by your group, and depending on your relationships, those choices can either make or break your team or change the trajectory of the story entirely. There's so many endings to this game, and the choices matter, and it feels meaningful. Triangle strategy belongs in this list because it's one of the strongest tactical RPGs of the modern era. It respects the old school formula without feeling outdated. If you enjoy strategy, political storytelling, and tough decisions, this game is a must and should not be ignored. And for the last time, Ashley and Keenan, get this blasted game. That's right. I'm calling you out. Get Triangle Strategy. Number two is a sleeper classic that deserves way more recognition than it gets. I absolutely love number two, Eternal Sonata for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Eternal Sonata is one of the most beautiful, classy, and unique RPGs of its generation. It has a concept that sounds unusual on paper, but once you experience it, you understand why fans still remember it so fondly. The story is connected to composer Frederick Chopin and imagines a dreamlike fantasy world during his final hours. The idea alone makes the game stand out apart from most RPGs on this list. Instead of using music as just a background element, the game builds its identity around it. The world, the characters, the atmosphere, and the soundtrack all carry that musical influence. The gameplay mixes turn based structure with real time movement. During battles, you move characters around the field, you attack enemies, and you use abilities depending on positioning. One of the most creative parts of combat is the use of light and shadow. Depending on where your character stands, certain abilities can change, which adds strategy to each encounter. Eternal Sonata is underrated because it has soul that many bigger RPGs do not. It's colorful, emotional, strange, and of course, a classic. It may not be the first game people mention from the Xbox 360 and PS3 era, but it's one of the most distinctive, unique, versatile, and original RPGs from that time. Number one is a game that sparked a movement called Operation Rainfall to get localization here in the West. Number one, The Last Story for the Nintendo Wii. The Last Story deserves a second chance, whether it will be a remake or a remaster on the Nintendo Switch 2. This was one of the most important RPGs on the Wii, yet it never became as big as it should have. For a game connected to a legendary RPG talent, it feels like it should have been discussed way more often than it does. The story follows Zale and a group of mercenaries. Zale dreams of becoming a knight, but his journey pulls him into war, politics, class struggles, and a mysterious power that changes his place in the world. What makes the story work is the grounded tone. These characters do not feel like random chosen heroes that we get all the time. They feel like people trying to survive and find purpose in a world full of conflict. The gameplay is where the last story really shines. It's an action RPG with tactical elements, cover mechanics, party commands, and real time combat. You're not just standing there in place selecting attacks, you're moving, you're positioning yourself, you're managing enemy attention, and you're using your team to control the battlefield. It gave the Wii an RPG that felt different from the usual turn based formula. The last story earns the top spot because it feels like a game that should have had a bigger legacy. It has strong music and a mature fantasy tone, interesting combat, and a world that deserves more attention. It's a kind of RPG that makes you wish it had a remaster so more players could discover it today. And Nintendo, please re-release it either on the damn store or give us a full-blown remaster or remake. The last story definitely deserves it. Not every great RPG becomes a household name. Some need time to be rediscovered. Some need players willing to look beyond the usual recommendation. These 10 games I feel prove that the RPG genre is filled with hidden gems, cult classics, and overlooked adventures that still deserve to be played. What games do you think deserve to be on this list? Comment below and let me know. And if you like what we do here, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and most importantly, visit imaginativevisions.com. Later days.